These are some of my favorite videos to make. Today we are talking about my favorite, or what I consider to be the best speakers between $500 and $1,000. They all are a bit different. And that's why I like them, because we shouldn't be constrained to only the perfect measuring speaker, the perfect resonating speaker. Sometimes a speaker's weaknesses are actually their strengths, because it gives them personality. So sit down, grab your favorite beverage, and let's talk about my favorite speakers between $500 and $1,000. Now, I don't have all of these here, but all of the speakers that I'm going to talk about I have heard with my little ears. I do have this one here, though. This is the Wharfedale Denton 80th edition, not the 85th edition, not the 90th, 30th edition. This is the 80th edition. I think you can still find these today. They used to be $600. They're $500 now, if you can still find them. Or they were at least $500. But, look at that. Listen to that. Most importantly, look at it. It is simply beautiful. And if anything, even if this speaker was mediocre, it would still make the list because it's so beautiful. Real wood veneer. Check out the back of this thing. It's yummy. From a sonic standpoint, this speaker is neutral-ish, but it has just a titch of warmth in the mid-range. And frankly, makes one of the most beautiful desktop speakers that you can get. 5 1/4 inch woofer, 1 inch soft dome tweeter. I don't know how they make speakers this good, look this good at this price. Because at $500, you're getting speakers that don't have real wood veneer, don't have the construction that this thing has, and frankly, don't sound as good as this speaker does. Wonderful speaker. I love it. The second speaker on my list today is actually upstairs, and I'm too lazy to go get it, but it is the Acoustics 5020. Comes in much more expensive at $800, I think. Ouch, it's $900. But this thing has a tonality that is simply addicting. It has a natural yet dynamic sound, and I think it leans fairly neutral. Again, with a little bit of warmth in the mid-range. However, I think the Wharfedale Denton 80th edition is a little bit more neutral. So it leans right of the Acoustics. But they have a tonality to them, and you never feel like you're not getting enough top end. You never feel like you're not getting enough bottom end. But the vocals and the mid-range timbre is super addicting. At $900, I do feel like they're just a titch pricey, because the enclosure is not the prettiest enclosure out of the bunch. And frankly is a vinyl wrap. I wish it was better, but you can't argue with how they sound. The entire 5000 series, to me, is one of the most enjoyable speakers. And when I'm not reviewing a speaker, those speakers always go back up just as kind of my, well, I guess you would call them a reference speaker. Acoustics 5020, $900. You want to go big? This is another one of my reference speakers that is pretty much always on duty upstairs. It's the XT1s from Emotiva. This is a floor standing speaker. Air motion tweeter, which gives you a ton of detail on the top end, a ton of information. But this speaker also is very punchy. You get 2 woofers, a mid-range driver, and then a tweeter. Or 3 woofers. That's right, 3 woofers and a mid-range driver. It's like a 2-way on top of 3 woofers. So it's a 3-way speaker, but this thing is just, spectacular. There is something about Emotiva speakers. There is something about their house sound that for me is kind of like my jam, because my jam is hearing the air after a acoustic guitar is plucked. The breath sounds, especially with female artists, I don't know what it is, but Adele, Lena Hall, even Norah Jones, even though Norah Jones is a bit too audiophile for me, I just love hearing the space. And at $1,000 to get a floor standing speaker of the quality of the Emotiva XT1, it's phenomenal. It's really unheard of. And I think if Emotiva is still running their 20% off sale, that means these speakers are coming in at $800, which is just bananas. The SVS Prime Bookshelf still hangs on as one of the best speakers between $500 and $1,000. This has an aluminum dome tweeter, and early on, like almost 4 years ago at this point, I was comparing the SVS Prime Bookshelf to the first Klipsch RP600M. The Klipsch RP600M was really celebrated amongst the YouTube community, and I could understand why. But for me, it had a little bit too much of a upper mid-range tilt, and just after a while got to be a bit fatiguing at higher SPL levels. With the SVS Prime Bookshelf, it gave you some of that excitement on the top end, but I never felt that it was as fatiguing as the RP600M. And I think at $600, these used to be $500 a pair 4 years ago. And you can find these sometimes on the open box deals for the piano gloss version. I like the black ash version. 6.5-inch woofer, 1-inch aluminum dome tweeter, 87 dB, so they're a little bit more sensitive than a lot of the speakers on this list today. But it gives you a very exciting presentation while also being punchy on the bottom. Fantastic speaker. It was 4 years ago and it still holds up today. The Polk R200 is also a 6.5-inch woofer two-way speaker. Has a ring radiator tweeter, which can be a little bit intense at times with certain recordings. So I really think the R200 needs to be paired with almost a warm-ish sounding amplifier or a really punchy amplifier. The thing about this speaker is it puts out about as much bass as a floor standing speaker does. Doesn't have real wood veneer, but this thing packs a huge punch and is a bit... Actually, I think I have it. One moment. Look at this big boy. It's kind of funny. You can say big boy, but you can't really say big girl. If I said, look at this big girl, people wouldn't like that. Magnetic grill. Big speaker. It's got some cool woofer technology going on. And this... If you remember the Legend series, which was a bit of a flop for Polk, which was their super high-end speaker, this basically has the same woofer. And that ring radiator tweeter is really cool. On the back, you also have like a turbine port. That may be a bit of a gimmick, but I will say that this speaker does pack a punch. You can actually get it fairly close to the wall because I think there's some cool dispersion with this port on the back. It comes in at $749 retail, but regularly goes on sale down to around $600. And I think in November, we're gonna see a lot of sales on this speaker. This is a fun speaker, although I think it is way overpriced for what it is. It's the Pro-Ject Speaker Box 5S2. There was another version of this that came out that I think was more affordable, but this is a great sounding speaker. I think it's a little bit dipped in the mid-range, which is the sound that I like. So it's real punchy, even though it's a small speaker, but you got a lot of detail on top. I wish it was about $550 or $600. I think that's really where this speaker needs to be. But even at $700, I think it's a great speaker. Oh, the Speaker Box 5 is $349. Okay. This list, however, is $500 to $1,000. If you're on a budget, though, the Speaker Box 5, nice. Comes in fun colors. This speaker, and frankly, I'm really surprised that I'm recommending it, but it is one of the easiest speakers to love, and that's the Acoustics. Acoustics got 2 slots. The M40, which is a powered speaker. They call it a mini tower, and it's small, but you have an amplifier in it, and they have some DSP going on, which makes this speaker sound real nice. And if you consider that you don't need to buy an amplifier, then this speaker is even more of a value. Really surprised how much bass this put out, and it was nice bass, clean bass. I didn't like the M20, which is the bookshelf, the powered bookshelf. Just very neutral. The only thing about this speaker, it doesn't have HDMI, but if you do have it hooked up to your TV, you can use an optical connection. That is, if your TV has an optical output. You can hook a subwoofer up to it. One of the biggest surprises for this year, and it was a pleasant surprise because I ended up really liking this speaker. Another floor standing speaker that comes in right south of $1,000 a pair is the new JBL Stage 260F. Stage 260F. Really addictive mid-range on this speaker. Can be just a touch fatiguing if you have them facing right at you, but the way that they've designed the waveguide on the tweeter makes this thing image super well even when you have them facing directly out into the room. Two 6.5-inch woofers and one 1-inch aluminum dome tweeter. I was thrilled that JBL came and refreshed the Stage series. They come in with a cooler, more modern look, and this speaker was fun for music and excellent for television. It's also very sensitive at 90 dB, so this can be powered by even more modest powered amplifiers. Another speaker that's been out for a long time but is still really good is the ELAC Debut Reference DBR 62. Another 4-year-old speaker, but it's built really well, even though it has a vinyl wrap, is front ported. I need to get these out again. They are up there on my top shelf. 1-inch soft dome tweeter, 6.5-inch woofer. I have seen these go on sale occasionally, but they come in at I think I said $600. They actually come in at $699. I think they will go on sale down to $600. Probably will be happening this month, but they look great. You can get kind of a dark wood with a black baffle, or you can get a lighter wood with a white front baffle. And they're just terrific. Speaking of ELAC, the Uni-Fi 2.0, now I'm going to put a caveat on this, because this is a very neutral speaker and it takes a long time to break in. Coming in at $489 right now. The retail price is $699 on these. They have aluminum drivers though. I think more people will like the sound of the Debut Reference, but the Uni-Fi 2.0, once it breaks in, is a really fun speaker. Maybe a little bit flat on top, and I think the Debut Reference has more personality. But the one thing about the Uni-Fi 2.0 is it gives you what the recording is giving you, and it will absolutely drop crazy bombs on the bottom, even though it has a 5.25-inch woofer, but it has a concentric mid-range and tweeter. Bear in mind, it takes a lot of break-in and is a very neutral sounding speaker, but very dynamic after it breaks in. So that's my list. What did I miss? If I missed, oh, wait a minute, I have one more. I'm gonna mention it even though it's not $500. The good news is it's $380. And it's the True Mini monitor from Philharmonic. I was really impressed with this speaker when I heard it. And I think I still have a pair because I asked if they wanted me to send them back and they never replied. So they're in a box in my garage right now. It's a 2-way mini monitor. It comes with a 1-inch soft dome tweeter. It's an SB Acoustics, never mind, I just lied to you. It's the 3/4-inch fabric dome tweeter. This is not the speaker that I heard. I heard a 5.25-inch one. Maybe it was a 4-inch driver. Anyway, this thing was outstanding. Goes down to 70 hertz. Which doesn't sound super low, but it was still very dynamic, very clean. I would say this is also a bit of a neutral speaker. Probably going to need a subwoofer, but at $380, you can buy a $300 RSL subwoofer and come in at $680. And that little duo would pack quite a punch. What did I miss? Please put it in the comments.